I just wanted to say hi. I'm Megan, the business manager with the Chamber of Commerce in Napanee. I wanted to know what business you're with.
I own Recreations. I think we've met a while ago, a couple years ago. Yeah. So I primarily, I'm going to try to turn the video on. There we go. I primarily do candles these days, but I do a lot of like repurposing old furniture and stuff and woodwork as well.
Awesome.
I just did before. It's like talking to thin air.
No problem.
Catherine and Jason, are we okay to start?
Sure.
I will talk a little bit more about each of you and introduce you. So Catherine, who we have here, Catherine Burrows is passionate about helping entrepreneurs find the right words to describe their business that resonate with their ideal clients, because she wants to see our communities filled with strong, independent businesses. Her blend of training in business and fiction writing give her unique insight into creating brand stories. She's been a freelance copywriter since 2016. And then we have Jason. Jason, I believe you're going first in this presentation, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So Jason Tanner has been running his own marketing consulting company for 20 years. He helps companies with value propositions and marketing systems. So thank you so much for running this, shortening the sales cycle today. And yeah, it's a small group.
That's okay. We need the practice.
It means you'll get all your questions answered.
Exactly. At least the ones we can handle. So despite the best intentions that we have, we tend to get in the way of the natural buying process of prospects. There's a number of reasons why we do this, but we're not going to spend any time on those. We're just going to talk about what the natural buying process is when someone is trying to considering the purchase of something, and then we can reflect on how we can synchronize our approach to prospecting, marketing, and sales so that we're in sync with them. We're actually bringing value to their process rather than trying to persuade them to do something that they don't want to do or that's not in their interests. So I'm just going to do the old share screen thing here and share the, let's see if I can find, nope, desktop. Hold on a second. Just give me one moment. Get the, there it is. I found it. Okay. So, sorry about that. We're still a little bit rusty here. Get back up to the top. There we go. So understanding the buying process allows you to identify points where a sale would usually stall out. And we're going to be sharing a series of radical ideas today to help you do some thinking about that. And you can use this to sell literally anything so long as you're selling to a human being. So this will not matter if you end up selling to aliens or dogs down the road, but so long as you're selling to people, this is going to be applicable. First radical idea is that despite the best intentions, we tend to get in the way of the buying process. This is counterintuitive. Jeffrey Gitomer puts it best. He says that people love to buy, they just don't like being sold to. And what he means is that people don't like being persuaded to do something that is that's not on their minds, right? Or is a left turn from what they were thinking of doing anyway. To do something that feels unnatural to them. And that's what is traditionally thought about, how we traditionally think about salespeople as maybe being manipulative or being persuaders, or maybe they're going to make us do something that we wouldn't otherwise do. But people do like to purchase, so long as they have the confidence to proceed. So how do we know that we're unwittingly hindering the chances of closing the sale? Maybe you've had experiences like this, where a deal goes south for no readily apparent reason. Maybe we only seem to close deals when they come in as a referral or a recommendation from a previous client. Or for those of you with active marketing campaigns, you're spending way too much money on marketing, and maybe you don't know that that's the case, and it's not really going to be obvious to you until you go back to the drawing board and optimize your campaign, and it starts to improve, and you look back on what you're doing right now and say, oh yeah, I can definitely see that I was getting in my own way there. We're going to talk about how to optimize your campaign with some simple principles that'll help you think about how you're talking to people. So one of the key ideas I want to get across to you is that this is a completely solvable problem. You may not believe that it's a solvable problem, and you may reason, as many people do, that sales is a numbers game, and some deals are just going to go south, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to believe. But we can lower the number of deals that go south because we're not participating in the natural sales process. We might say, well, we do get business from referrals, and those are really good deals because they're easy to close. So maybe I could just ask my existing customers to refer more people. But we know there's a risk there as well, right? It's a tightrope walk. It needs to be done carefully. It's easy to be annoying when you're kind of begging for referrals. There's entire business networking groups that predicate their value proposition on this idea of pressuring their members to refer business, and that's always made me feel very uncomfortable because you're assuming some risk there. Every time you recommend, the hardware store down the street, you don't know what kind of experience your friend is going to have. So you're always assuming some social risk there. So you can't rely on referrals either. What about cutting your marketing budget? That's not really a good strategy either. That's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I'm suggesting a fourth option, which brings us to radical idea number 2. Or does it? Did I press wrong? There it is. So it's possible to structure your prospecting, marketing, and sales messaging to synchronize with the natural buying process that your prospect has. So this makes your messaging more compelling because you're not interrupting them. You are participating in their process. So you're doing this by giving them the information that they need to buy more confidently. And to do this, you become more conspicuously focused on having the best interest of the prospect in mind. Now, I use the word conspicuously on purpose because it may be that you do genuinely have the interests of your prospects in mind, but you're not conspicuous about it. So this is going to help you to be conspicuous about it. They're going to be able to tell that you care. And you're no longer a salesman trying to manipulate them. You have transitioned into becoming a trusted advisor, which is a totally different relationship. This requires you to be willing to introduce them to the best possible solution wherever it may be found. And here's the ugly truth is that it might not be you. And that's fine too. And you can be really transparent about that from the get-go. You can say, listen, I would like to understand your needs better. We may not be a good fit, but I'm pretty confident that given my understanding of your situation, I'm going to be able to recommend something to you that makes sense, even if it's not me. And that gives you the opportunity to develop the products on your shelf so that maybe if it's not you, you could add something so that you're more likely to be an option to a person like that in the future. So you win either way. Either you learn more about your market or you position yourself as a trusted advisor, which helps them trust you more when you present whatever the solution is to them down the way. Any questions so far from anybody? Nope. Good. All right. So that we'll need to understand here is that this is not a complicated process conceptually. We need to think about it as a function of your normally courteous behavior. So you're just being courteous to people and you're allowing them to do their thing. You're not being rude and interruptive and all the other stuff. So this is a natural extension of how you normally treat people in your personal life and your social life. So you can take that commitment to courtesy to the buying process. So we're going to cover the natural buying processes of the prospect. We're going to talk about some accelerators that you can move to move people along a little bit quicker, but without shaking their confidence. So we're not asking them to go any faster than they would naturally go. You're just giving them confidence in the right areas. And how the personality of the prospect affects the buying style and how to respond to that. So we're not going to touch on that too much, but that's another area that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a webinar on in a little bit while, talking about how the Kolbe system of personality typing can be used as a predictor of how people will respond to the style of presentation that you use, the kinds of information that they require to make a decision confidently, because everybody's a little bit different. Here's the alternative. So if we're interested in rejecting, we're going to reject all these ideas, then you can go on being annoying, interrupting people, and only closing people who are lazy in their evaluation process. So some people, and I'm guilty of this for sure, are lazy evaluators, right? They will find some way of getting away from the hard work of analyzing all of the comparison factors that are in play. Even when it's an expensive thing like a car, they will go to their uncle who's a car expert, or they will go to reviews on Amazon or something like that. Anything to get away from having to do the hard work of actually evaluating the product in a coherent way. So here's radical idea number 3. People just want to be able to make the best possible decision. And here are some of the factors there that make up a good decision. The best decision is the one that promises the outcome that they're seeking. That seems pretty obvious. And can be a cost or investment they can afford. So whatever money they're going to outlay, whatever energy or attention they're going to have to outlay to make that decision, it's something they're willing to invest. And the level of risk that they're accepting is tolerable. So you buy something and there's a good warranty, good guarantee, or the thing that they're purchasing has a reputation for being exceptionally reliable. All things that potentially lower the risk. And they have various ways of achieving those objectives. So the Robert Collier principle states that we always want to enter the conversation that's already occurring in the prospect's mind. We already talked about how that factors into Jeffrey Gitomer's quote there. And basically understanding the natural process of the sale will help us to do that. So let's get into that. And this will improve, as we mentioned earlier, every aspect of our sales process, our sales funnel, from prospecting to sales processes, marketing automation, social media, the whole thing can be informed by this. I already covered that. Sorry. Okay, so here's the buying process in one fell swoop, just so we can get our head around it. I don't know. I think some of my I gotta move my my little video. Everybody's faces are over top of the last part of that slide here. There we go. So we start out at awareness. We move into interest, into consideration, then evaluation, and into decision and intent. I'm going to get into the weeds on what each of these mean as we go along here. And then, of course, ultimately purchase. And the higher the risk that the prospect feels, right? And the risk may be a function of the expense, how expensive the item is, or the how unknown the vendor is, right? Maybe there's no reputation, there's no means for them to outsource the evaluation process to someone else. That's something that elevates the risk and slows the process right down. So you want to understand that if you're trying to speed up the sales process, that it's going to be about lowering the risk so that they feel confident and moving through all these stages. So you want to think about, conceptualize this as a road or a ladder. Here's an example of how people outsource consideration and evaluation. That's part of the area that is responsible for building confidence. But maybe you just, as we mentioned earlier, try to outsource it to somebody who knows better than you. I'm not interested in buying a computer because I don't know anything about computers. So I bring my cousin with me who knows all about computers. He's going to ask all the right questions, and in the end, he's going to make the recommendation. And in that scenario, he's functioning as a trusted advisor, someone that I know, and someone who I trust to have my best interest in mind. The salesman could perform that same job if the salesman is known to be someone who can be trusted to have the best interest of the prospect in mind. So we can position ourselves in the same way. If we always show that we have their best interest in mind. So let's just look at the first step there. Awareness or agitation is the level of the sales process where you discover that you have a problem or you have an aspiration that you want to fill. And there's a bunch of different areas to this. You may be thinking about a cost that you have, some symptom. You may be focused on the cause of a symptom. You may have some passing awareness of the existence of a solution, or a brand that's providing a solution to a particular problem that you're having. So that gets you to start thinking about the awareness of the issue that you have. And this seems like it's a pretty obvious thing, but in enterprise sales, where the products are complex, sometimes the awareness is it's just not there because there's a problem that's being solved by the company that it's a problem that an industry has learned to tolerate, and they don't really believe that there's a solution out there, so they no longer think about it. It's just business as usual. That always happens. They don't even think about it. So agitating the idea again, maybe you're tolerating this and it's costing you X, is the beginning step to the interest stage, which is the belief in the solution. So now that you're aware of this problem again that perhaps you've been tolerating or ignoring, you can think about it again, safe in the knowledge that there is a potential solution out there. So at this stage, people need to have some expectation that the solution exists and that the solution will be effective. And there's a few different ways of demonstrating that. We've seen like before and after pictures, talking about other people's experiences with the solution. Telling stories is a good way to do it. Maybe talking about what the limitations are that people feel exclude them from being eligible, from enjoying the benefit of the solution. So I can't do that because it's too expensive. That's why I've been ignoring the solution. Here's an interesting example. I'm reading a book right now called Seeing Around Corners, and they talk about the hearing aid industry. And there's a fairly sizable number of potential customers who tolerate the problems related to hearing loss because hearing aids are just too expensive. But there's a change now where there are low-cost options for them that don't require extensive testing and give them maybe 50% of their hearing back at a tiny fraction of the cost. So they may have excluded themselves from a conversation about a product because they have always felt, traditionally, they have felt that it has been beyond their ability to afford the solution. So as things change, we may have to challenge people's assumptions to rekindle their interest. Good news, even if you feel like you can't afford a hearing aid, or in the past you haven't been able to afford a hearing aid, there are low-cost solutions available to you, or there are affordable financing options available to you, or whatever, right? You see this sometimes with some of these online courses that are teaching guitar or piano. Even if you consider yourself completely tone deaf, right? There's that limitation. We have a simple system that can teach even a moron like you how to play the guitar. So you're agitating or reminding them of the limitation that they have used to exclude themselves from maybe an aspiration or relief from a problem that they have. So that's the interest. You need to help them believe there's a solution. So consideration. So now I am a prospect who believes that there is a solution to a problem that I forgot I had, or an aspiration that I had. What is the consideration step for? Now, the consideration step is where you create a framework for gathering facts to analyze the options. So first of all, you're looking at all the people or businesses or options that are out there to help you to solve the problem. This is the mode you're going to be in. So what information do you need to make that decision? Maybe you create like a rubric or a chart, either on paper or just in your mind, if it's something simple. You will look at all of the options, all the vendors, including the vendor that is always competing with you out there, which is the do nothing vendor. People always have the option of leaving things exactly the way they are right now. So you're always competing with that guy. So you have to consider that. So what is the cost benefit or evaluation factors? So maybe you've got 3 or 4 vendors who you consider to be competing for your business in solving this solution or solving this problem. What factors are you going to start taking into consideration? As the person who is trying to actively participate in their buying process, you want to help them get through this, because if they don't even know what questions to ask, this is an opportunity for you to teach them how to make a valuable evaluation. So you might say that these 4 factors are things you should be thinking about if you are trying to solve your hearing problem. You know, let's imagine, you know, that how conspicuous the hearing aid is. How easy is it to get batteries? What are the tolerances of this device? Can I get it wet? You know, so you might help them by actually providing a download or a worksheet that helps them to create that analysis very easily. So you're doing that work for them. We mentioned earlier that that whole decision-making process from interest to evaluation is expensive mentally. Anything that's mentally expensive or difficult, people will try to avoid, and that's why they look for referrals, right? That's why you ask your friend what they think, because you're trying to get out of the work. But you can help people by doing the work for them, right? So you can give them these little tools to help them make these decisions and do so confidently, even if they don't consider themselves to be an expert. You're trying to make them a more sophisticated buyer so that they can choose you with confidence, or choose whoever they're going to choose with confidence. And again, the risk here is that they're not going to choose you. And this is just an opportunity for you to learn something about what's missing in your value proposition. They didn't choose me because I didn't have a waterproof hearing aid to sell them, or I didn't have a hearing aid to sell them that was under $200. Maybe I need one. So this is an opportunity for you. And again, what is the cost of picking the wrong things? You might add that to your little worksheet that they can work from. One of the costs is, of course, the purchase price. But what is the cost of picking the wrong thing, or doing nothing? Because that's one of the competitors that's in the mix here. So evaluation. Now we have all of our factors on a nice, neat sheet, and we can see them all together, and we can evaluate. We can start saying, what compromises are we willing to make? How does your offer stand up against competitors in a point-by-point comparison? Is your ability to sell based on a prospect's evaluation laziness? So are you hoping that people are going to skip all of this hard work and just pick you because they know you? Well, that's terrific if you've been in business for 20 years and your business has a reputation. But if it doesn't, then you need to be willing to participate in people's decision-making process, because that's going to engender confidence in lieu of referrals, recommendations, and other things like that normally let people skip all the hard work of making a tough decision. Is everybody kind of still with me? I've been going really fast. Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks, Megan. So we don't want our ability to sell based on something as shaky as evaluation laziness. I know, I confidently can tell you that I have sold my services to people purely predicated upon the fact that they enjoyed our conversation. They didn't want to push any further. And I wasn't part of an RFP process. They weren't comparing me with anyone else. I know that because of how fast the sale went. And it didn't necessarily have anything to do with what I was saying. It was just evaluation laziness. But I would have made more sales if I was doing some of the things that we were talking about here. So I'm not relying on people to be expedient or lazy. I'm actually helping them make the hard work easier. Decision and intent. So at this point, we got our worksheet in front of us with like 5 or 6 options, and we've crossed out 3 of them. And we're down to 2, maybe 2 options that we're really interested in. And the reason why there's just 2 is that they're really close. It's kind of hard to tell them apart. So at this point, the prospect may pick something that is arbitrary or soft, right? They might say, did I like the salesperson I was talking to? You know, I talked to 2 people. I got the nicest feeling from talking to Megan, right? She made me feel confident. She spent the extra time with me. I'm just going to go with her. She's $10 more, but that doesn't matter to me. I feel most confident with her. All other things being equal or nearly indistinguishable, they will go with some irrational reason. They may like you based on your reputation. They may like you based on the fact that they feel like your values resonate with them. So if your social media is oriented towards getting your value system out there, at least partly, this may be a tipping point for someone. They may say, well, as a fellow veteran, I'm interested in doing business with that person because they really get where I'm coming from. All other things being equal. That's not enough at the beginning. You'll see this with multi-level marketing people. When your friend Susan comes to you and she's just joined Metaluca and she's all hopped up on enthusiasm and excitement, and she's hoping to God you're going to buy this $10 bottle of shampoo from her because we have a relationship. She skipped a whole bunch of steps, and she's hoping that on the weight of the fact that we have this affinity, she can count on you to buy this bottle of shampoo that doesn't even maybe even solve a problem for you. You don't even have you haven't passed through awareness or interest or any of these other stages, and you're thinking to yourself, this is completely cringeworthy, and I'm not sure why, but that's what's going on. She's hoping that you're going to pull the trigger because you're friends, and that's another thing that makes me super uncomfortable, and for obvious reasons, right? What about location and convenience? So all other things being equal, the two vendors I'm looking at, one is convenient. They have free shipping. One of them is a little less convenient. The shipping isn't going to be calculated until the shopping cart. So my wife and I went through this last night with Amazon and another e-commerce store. I've got Prime, so I knew the shipping was going to be free. The upfront cost looked to be a little bit more expensive, but once we got to the shopping cart, it looked like we're going to save $4 going with Amazon, even though the product price was lower. So there's a convenience, a simplicity of offer there. Getting back to convenience location, if I'm looking at one Ford F-150 and it's being sold in Napanee, maybe I go for that before I drive to Belleville, or I drive to Dundas or Hamilton for something of close to the same price. All of the things being equal, convenience wins, because the relationship maybe means nothing to me. They're just order takers at this point. I've done all the research. So that's what's going on at the decision intent. We're really down to like the granular stuff, and you can build a foundation in your social media marketing, whatever, that helps them to see that it's easier to do business with you, or it's more convenient, or you're someone relatable. These irrational reasons have been set in place so that when they get down to it and it's really neck and neck, you have that little bit of extra competitive advantage that allows you to win the sale, basically. And it could just be that you've spent a little bit more time with them at some earlier point in the process. It could be as simple as that. So what do we do with this information? And this is the point where I pass you over to Catherine, and she has put together some excellent examples of how you can use this framework to craft your copywriting, or to have her help you craft your copywriting, which would be ideal, so that you can meet people where they are in their sales process and synchronize their natural behavior and needs during that decision-making process with the marketing that you've put together. So go ahead, Catherine.